you can quit the tour, but your label's never going to give you money now because there you have to pay back all that money, and you're probably going to end up going back to Vancouver and being a mover. I was like, it's better than going on tour and ending up dead somewhere. I'm like, I'm not going to do
God
that.
love you.
And so I just was like, cool, I'll go back and become a mover. That's fine.
So in Vancouver, when and how did you realize that songwriting was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I sort of had the inkling that it was the job for me in maybe when I was about 14 or 15.
How?
Well, I was in a shopping mart and I heard a Tracy Chapman song called "Give Me One Reason" over the it's one of the most vivid memories. Like I was like in the vegetable section, and they had the little spray hoses going, and I was like, what song is this? And there was a part of me that that had a weird feeling like I had written that song, and that I knew that was the path for me because of that. And it's really funny because I always talk about like manifestation being kind of like a huge factor of me getting here. And what that song did, which I've seen now, like even, I've told the stories over the years, and now I have a different understanding. I'm like, actually, what that song did was pretty amazing. Because when I heard that song, I don't know why it sort of aligned with my sort of soul in a way. And I felt like I was performing it and I was singing it, and it was like a song that I had written, like I kind of put myself in my imagination into the role of being the songwriter of this song. And it became a habit that I would say almost every single time I get into a car and I'm driving, if I'm listening to music, I'll start it over, and then I'm going to go into my imagination, and I'm imagining myself as the writer and myself as the singer and myself as the thing.
Yeah.
As a manifestation tool. And if it's like a Drake song, maybe I'm just like in the studio, but like I have like some chords. Or if it's a Adele song, maybe I have, a couple lyric ideas or something, but I'm always kind of putting myself into the creation of those things as if it happened. And I think it was just a natural progression from my imagination to reality. And I'm sort of very thankful, but it's also a pretty unbelievable story about how I ended up in a room with Adele. So I had to write a solo record to get there.
But the story of how you did that is kind of mythological at this point. I mean, the story is that, and I'll tell you about my connection to it in a second. But like, your mom gets diagnosed with cancer. You were in a bike accident, and you go through a breakup, and that's what kind of gets you back to Vancouver. Am I right about that?
Oh yeah. So now I'm back home, and I'm sort of on the back foot going, I don't know really what my path is. And I think I just had this idea like, I've never really tried piano. I've tried guitar, but it makes no sense to me. I can't really get around chords. And when I learn them, I can't remember them. And then like I would try something else, or I would try bass, and I played bass in the band for a long time. And it was always this, not a connection-based thing. It was just a means to an end to get the song or to get the thing I could like just get by. When I started to play the piano, I was finally able to write the songs to a finished point that I never felt like I could before. I never felt like I could get to the point where I felt like everything that the song needed to communicate was in this recording that I finished myself. I'd never recorded. I'm not really like a technical guy. I still am like having trouble like with this kind of stuff, and then I remember going on a walk with a friend of mine, a really old close friend of mine, and she'd been a friend through my whole musical journey, which is kind of like a journey of failure because there was no success. But I remember walking with her on the Vancouver seawall and just saying, I wrote a song the other day, and I think it's like the first song I like.
What song was that?
It was Just a Dream. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm way happier with my demos than even my record. And I know that sounds weird because the record is the thing you're supposed to put all your energy in and be proud of. But I truly believe that my skill set is sort of left at that stage. And everything from that stage to the end of a record is somebody else's decision. Because I don't want to pick the track list of my record, and I don't want to pick the songs that go on it, and I don't want to take the photos. I don't really want to do anything other than write the songs that go on it. And I could really care less what somebody chose, you know, like a lot of my record was just what the producers wanted to record. And I had maybe 40 or 50 songs to choose from, and it was totally up to them. I had no say. I didn't care. It didn't matter. We'll pick a song and let's record it. I don't care. And but when I listen to my demos, I hear a different side of it. I hear just a songwriter, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously my voice is quite flawed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me because it's honest, you know. It's less honest when I do 5 vocal takes to get the right take than it is for me to do a vocal take that has some mistakes in it. And that's not a palatable thing for most people, you know what I mean, to listen to a voice that goes out of tune. But for me, it's more honest, and as such, I relate to it more, and I like it more, and it stands the test of time because I don't feel like I am trying to show a version of myself that's not true, which is why it was so hard for me to be an artist, because it was really tough to deal with pretending I was good at traveling, pretending I was good at performing, or I thought I could sing a song like and do justice to the record, to believe in myself that I was supposed to be playing like a sold out show. Like these are all things that most people would find energy from. Oh, people want to see me perform. They're buying tickets. Like this is a good thing. This is like on my way. But I was so far out past what I wanted, which was just to stay in the room and write songs, you know, and now it's interviews every day and getting on a bus or going here and doing that. And I think, you know, I just wasn't mentally prepared for it. I wasn't sort of in the place that it was comfortable for me. And so instead what happened was I became like the drama queen of the label, or king. And it was like, I just felt like I was just not my best self because I'm doing all this stuff I don't want to do. And yeah, sure, there's maybe money at the end of it. I think that was the promise. Like once you go through a few tours, maybe you'll like, you know, make as much money as if I went home and became a mover or something like that. But it didn't fulfill me. And I am way more creatively driven than I am financially driven.
Let me just catch Let me catch people up here a little bit. So I'll say this. I was one of those people who got on to the early demos before the record came out, before Goon came. So Tobias Jesso Jr. makes this record called Goon, and it's on all this big best of albums of the year lists and all that. But I remember, I have this recollection. So I did this morning show in Canada at the time, and I remember getting this text from my friend, I think my friend Lee Hanlon, and he wrote me and he said, "Have you heard this guy? Like, have you heard anything like this?" And I think it was True Love, and I think it had 1,200 views. Like it was still very, very early on. And
that to me at the time was like a eye-boggling amount, you know, like when I put Just a Dream on YouTube and woke up and there was, 400 on there, it was like, I could have popped a bottle of champagne. You know, that was so much.
Man, it was so exciting. It was so exciting to hear. Like we all loved Randy Newman and Harry Nilsson, and we all loved good, solid, like pop, traditional pop writing. So we loved it. We were getting excited about it. I went to the show you did at the Drake Underground in Toronto by yourself. It was great. I begged and stole and borrowed to get into it. I called every last contact I had. I think there were like 50 of us there at that show. And I don't know, man, I have such great memories of listening to your music back then and just really loving it. So then I was following you along and kind of rooting for you the whole time, even before I found out your parents from Newfoundland. And I was like rooting for you, and I was just going for it. And then I saw the Goon happen, and I saw you went on the Tonight Show and you did How Could You Babe on the Tonight Show, which was a really big deal. And it was really all happening. This is where I if you're into it, I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. So you were saying like this is not what I wanted. I never actually wanted any of this. There's a big difference between someone who's touring for a living and someone who's writing songs. There's a difference between a professional musician and an artist and a songwriter. And you said, I became sort of the drama queen or king of the label, and I found touring really hard. Do you mind if I ask? Because to me, that is a big empty circle in your story. What happened there? Like, how did that manifest itself when you said you just had a hard time touring and all that?
Well, I mean, I think I always knew that I had stage fright, you know, like I'd never performed before and I'd never sung before. So when I made those demos, it was sort of this representation of what I could do, which is play the song like that and sing like that. And I was comfortable with that. When I had different people asking me to play them a song, or if I had a new song and I wanted to play it for friends, that was all okay. That was within my realm of comfort. And I was still a songwriter who was performing a song. And then when I became an artist, I think I had a different view of myself through the lens of the world, you know, which was he thinks he's a singer. You know, this is what I imagined the perception was. He thinks he can sing, but I know he can't. And I believe that person, you know. He thinks he can perform and he's good at interviews. He's not. And I was like, yeah, I agree with you there. And like all of this stuff just kind of weighed on me where I was like, I feel like a fraud, you know, like, but really all I want is to write songs. Like, is there any job that I could do that just is that part of it? Because all this other stuff I'm not very good at, and I can flail around and become good at it maybe, but I don't feel comfortable with it. It doesn't really, you know, this job was meant to make me a songwriter. I don't really want to sign up for a tour every year for the rest of my life. That sounds awful for me. And so right off the bat, I think, you know, my relationship with my managers is obviously amazing. They've been with me since the start and we're actually quite close friends, but like, because we were close friends, like they were getting my real thoughts about everything, which is like, this is going to kill me. If I stay on this tour, like I'm dead. Like this is the worst job I've ever had. I hate it. I can't perform every single night. It was the same. I would drink a bottle of wine in the green room.
Jesus.
I would go out on the stage. I would perform. That's the only way I could get out on stage is to be like close to blackout drunk. Go out on stage, perform, joke around, blackout. Don't know what happened. I'm drinking on stage as well. Wake up in the bus at like 4, so hungover, need to like squish water into my like body. And then I'm just going over the show and the night and what I said and what happened and the merch table and like, you know, seeing tagged photos or like somebody would be like, I think Tobias was drunk tonight. And I'm like, man, like, get me off of this. Like, I can't do this, you know, like this isn't sustainable for me. Get me out of here. And the sort of answer was I could either finish out my 2 tours, which one was in Australia and one was in Japan, or I could pay the promoters, you know, 20, 30 grand to cancel. And I'd never even had more than $1,000 in my bank account. So I was like, do I have to pay this money? And they were like, no, your label pays it. And as soon as they said it, I was like, then get me off the tour. Like, I just don't want to, like, if it's not like, I don't have to like work to pay it off and they can just pay it off with album sales or something, like just let that happen. It was a huge drop in morale, right?
Yeah.
Like
I feel for you, like, man. I really feel for you. Like, I hope you like, my heart's breaking for this kid. Like, obviously, listen, obviously things worked out. But like, I hope you can like, not to get too woo-woo here, but like, I hope you can look back on that 27, 28-year-old version of yourself and offer a bit of love to him. I mean, that sounds really tough, man. That sounds really tough.
And it was. And I think, you know, what I was sort of battling at the time was, am I a self-sabotager? Am I one of these people who just like has like opportunities given to me that I'm saying no to because I'm broken? Or am I actually like following a path that I think the universe is mapping out for me and trusting my gut that like saying no to something that's really tempting might actually bring the glory? And I think I left bands with that feeling. I had, you know, friendships end over those feelings of I got to trust my gut and go elsewhere. And I really had like a lot of time to sort of convince myself that I was sabotaging myself. So when I was on the tour and the answer was, you can quit the tour, but your label's never going to give you money now because there you have to pay back all that money and you're probably going to end up going back to Vancouver and being a mover. I was like, it's better than going on tour and ending up dead somewhere. I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Love you.
And so I just was like, cool, I'll go back and become a mover. That's fine.
I mean, the way this turns out is, I mean, it sounds like we're talking about a movie. It sounds like we're talking about like a novel, because I remember, again, I feel weird saying this to you. I don't know, but like, whatever. I felt like I was in on an inner circle of people who knew about you from the get-go. Like, I felt like there was a few of us, me and a couple of my buddies from home and a couple of my friends who were like into cool music or whatever. And we knew about you, and we were like, I don't know, we were with you when you were in the WHL, and then when you got to the AHL, and then we were excited for you when you got to the NHL, and then you dropped from the NHL, but we were still rooting for you. So I remember seeing the Adele tweet. I remember when Adele tweeted that she loved How Could You, Babe. I was on the air that morning. I was doing the Radio 2 morning show, and I read it out on air. I said, Adele just shouted out, Canadian songwriter Tobias Jesso Jr. This is a big moment. Can you, for people listening at home who don't know the story, because I think it's just a beautiful story, tell the story of how you ended up from that in the room, in the house, writing with her, and where that song came from. Would you mind?
She was working with me at the time because of what I did as an artist, so she was kind of interested. I think she reached out, or her manager reached out to my manager and said, we don't know, but would Tobias ever be interested in like collaborative songwriting? And my manager was like, he's just like the only person in the world who would love to do, like, this is like all he wants to do.
He wants to do this more than play the Grammys. He wants to do this more than anything.
Anything. Anything. And so I remember him telling me, that he had talked to Adele's manager. It was a big morale booster from where we were. And I was like, great, maybe I'm not moving home after all. Maybe I should stick around. And so she booked a session for the day she arrived in LA from London. This is for her album 25. And I really had no experience in a professional music setting. I had worked with friends only. And so I didn't know exactly what I was in store for. And I started to prepare for it. I started to really play as many chords, learn her songs, learn Aretha Franklin, learn Nina Simone, turn it into this, like trying to get to a place where like I can't be stumped, I'm not going to run out. And she walked in. I was so nervous because I was a huge fan, like a massive, massive fan. And so when I saw her acting like just herself when she walked in, it was like this, surreal, a little bit starstruck. I don't know what to do. And, this is in 2000 and whatever, 15. And she was like, I'm smoking. Are you smoking? I was like, yeah. So we went outside to the garden and we ended up just talking about her life, all the things I wanted to know. She was so candid, and then she was asking me about mine, and I could tell that she was really interested, which was confusing. I was like, what? Your life is so interesting. Like, what do you want to know about, like, eating peppers at the dollar store? Like, what's going on? Yeah, we just had this really good rapport, and I felt like we were really like able to be friends. You have that feeling like, actually, I could really just shoot the shit with this person in a good way. The jokes are landing back and forth, and we're having a great time. There's a lot of laughter. And she just said, I think she said, are we going to write a song? It was like, it had been 2 hours. I think I'd smoked a pack. I was like, yeah. And anyways, I was like, yeah, let's go back inside. So we went inside, and the story is I sat at the piano and I forgot everything I prepared. Absolutely everything was gone. It was just like, I was like looking at the piano, like all of the chords are like in my head, like mashing up, and I'm forgetting keys now because I had like crammed, it was like cram study. And then you like have the test and you're like, I know nothing, it's kind of like that. But she was so sweet. she just sat on the couch and just said, play whatever you want, play any chords, and I'll stop you if I hear anything. And we just started writing what is now When We Were Young. And it was a really amazing, wholesome, honest process. I got to witness Adele. I felt like I was like a fly on the wall at like one of the most amazing sort of things I'd ever seen, and I just remember constantly feeling like, I can't believe this is happening. Whenever something new or good would happen, I remember just being, I mean, that is like, talk about like the feeling like a songwriter lives for, is like a good idea landing. And then you're with this artist who you have so much respect for, and you're a part of this art now, was just insane. And I think she created for me the blueprint, which became my understanding of the best way to write a song with a person.
Which is?
She gave me like a perfect lesson, just shoot the shit until the stress is off, and then sit down and play whatever you feel, and then just go from there. And it doesn't need to be too much stress. There was no like, let's write a hit. There was no like, it needs to be upbeat, like nothing. It was like, whatever you feel. And I was like, wow, what a freedom, and also a terrifying freedom. And it just worked. I don't know, it just worked. And then she, from there, championed me more than I think anyone's ever championed me. It almost like was in my head, like she became the person I was waiting for, all those years I was struggling, was like, oh, maybe I needed Adele to like, be like, he's good, because that's jump-started my career into what I do now. And I think that had more of an effect on my life than any single event, including my album. I think, because I think of my album as sort of a misstep, or maybe something that happened a bit too soon for me,
I'm just really happy you've managed to accumulate some of this wisdom and this way of holistically getting through a very unholistic business. And I'm happy that after 8 years of doing the show, you're doing interviews again. And I'm glad we had a chance to have a chat. Thanks for making the time for us.
Oh man, thanks so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.